Apache beauty was mocked by her own people, until the rancher claimed her with pride. Maria was born in a small, quiet Apache reservation in the American Southwest. From the very beginning, people noticed her. She had dark, shining eyes that seemed to hold the depth of the desert skies, and her long, black hair fell like a river down her back. Her skin carried the warm glow of the sun, and there was a natural grace in the way she moved, even when she worked hard under the hot summer sun. Yet, for all of Maria's beauty, life on the reservation was not easy. The reservation was a place filled with both close-knit family ties and strict traditions. Everyone knew everyone else's story, and gossip could spread faster than the wind through the desert grass. While some people admired Maria quietly, others teased her. They said she was different, and they didn't always hide their laughter. Some mocked the way she dressed, saying her clothes were too simple or not like the others. Some teased her for speaking her mind, as she often asked questions or shared ideas about ways to make life a little easier for her family. Maria's family lived in a modest home at the edge of the reservation. Her father was a hard-working man who taught her how to care for animals, plant crops, and manage small chores around the house. Her mother was gentle but firm, always reminding Maria that beauty alone was not enough. A person needed strength, kindness, and intelligence. Maria loved learning from them. She spent hours helping her father tend to the small herd of goats and chickens they kept. She learned how to feed them, clean their pens, and even notice when an animal was sick. By the time she was 12, Maria could handle almost everything her father did on the small ranch. Despite her skills and intelligence, Maria often felt alone. Many of the girls her age didn't understand her, and some of the boys treated her with teasing that made her stomach ache. At times, she wondered if it would be better to be invisible, to fade into the background and avoid being noticed. But Maria had a spark in her that refused to disappear. She loved to explore the desert near her home, walking along the narrow dirt paths that twisted between the mesas and the small streams. She would often sit for hours watching the sun rise or set, listening to the quiet songs of birds and the whisper of the wind. These moments gave her peace and reminded her that there was more to life than the teasing voices around her. School was another place where Maria felt out of place. She enjoyed learning, especially reading about faraway places, history, and animals, but the other children sometimes called her show-off when she answered questions or shared ideas. The teasing didn't stop her curiosity. Maria read everything she could find, borrowing books from the small reservation library, and even trading stories with elders who remembered the old ways. She learned the legends of her people, the history of her land, and the practical skills that had kept her community alive for generations. All of this knowledge made her feel connected to something larger than herself. Even when the people around her did not appreciate her, Maria also loved music. She would hum songs while working in the fields or while walking along the dusty paths. Sometimes she would sing softly to herself at night, her voice blending with the quiet rustle of leaves outside her window. Music was her secret friend, a companion that never judged her, a comfort when laughter from others felt harsh and unkind. Despite the teasing and loneliness, Maria's family always encouraged her. Her father told her that her strength and intelligence were more important than what anyone else thought of her. Her mother reminded her that beauty was not just in the face, but in the heart and mind. And slowly, Maria began to believe it. She learned to lift her chin even when whispers followed her down the street. She learned to answer teasing with quiet confidence, or sometimes with a polite smile that confused those who tried to put her down. She discovered that people often respect someone who respects herself first. The local community had its traditions, and part of growing up as an Apache girl meant understanding them. Maria attended ceremonies with her family, helped with community gatherings, and listened carefully to elders' advice. She respected these traditions, but she also had dreams that went beyond what everyone expected. While other girls dreamed mostly of marriage or staying within the small reservation, Maria wanted to learn more about ranching, explore the wide-open landscapes, and perhaps one day run a ranch of her own. She kept these dreams close to her heart because she knew that speaking them aloud would invite teasing or criticism. Her work on the small family ranch made her stronger. Every morning she rose before sunrise to feed the animals, collect water, and help her father repair fences or gather hay. She became skilled at noticing even small changes in the animal's behavior, knowing when a goat might be sick or when a chicken had wandered too far. Her neighbors sometimes watched in quiet admiration, but others whispered behind her back. They didn't understand that Maria's attention to detail, patience, and determination were part of what made her exceptional. On weekends, Maria often helped her mother cook for family gatherings. She learned to grind corn, bake bread, and prepare meals with care and love. Her hands were steady and precise, and she took pride in doing things well. Cooking became another way for Maria to show her creativity and independence. She learned that caring for others did not mean giving up her own dreams. It could be an act of strength. Even as Maria worked hard and learned more skills than most girls her age, the teasing continued. Some children would whisper, "She thinks she's better than us," or "Look at her trying to act grown up." At first, these words hurt, cutting deeper than any physical pain, but Maria began to realize that their opinions did not define her. Slowly, she started to focus on her own growth, on becoming the person she wanted to be. The teasing became background noise, less powerful as her confidence grew. Maria's love for nature also helped her endure the ridicule. She would wander to the desert's edge, watch the coyotes in the distance, and listen to the wind as it moved through the rocks and sagebrush. Sometimes she would sit for hours, drawing in the sand or sketching plants and animals. These moments reminded her that the world was bigger than the small judgments of her peers. She felt free in these spaces, dreaming of a life filled with opportunity and respect, even if it was still far away. Through all of this, Maria's heart remained kind. She never returned the teasing with anger or spite. Instead, she tried to help others when she could, offering a smile or a kind word to those who were struggling themselves. She learned that strength was quiet and steady, not loud or aggressive. And in the depths of her heart, Maria held on to hope. Hope that one day someone would see her for who she truly was, and that her abilities, her intelligence, and her beauty would be recognized not as a source of jealousy or ridicule, but as something to admire and respect. Maria's early life was full of challenges, small victories, and quiet lessons. Every day she faced the world with courage and determination, learning from her family, her surroundings, and her own reflections. Though the whispers of mockery followed her like shadows, she refused to let them define her. Instead, she grew stronger, more capable, and more self-assured, preparing herself for a future that promised not just survival, but recognition, respect, and perhaps even love. And in the quiet moments, when the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned pink and orange, Maria would stand at the edge of the desert, letting the cool evening air brush against her face, imagining a life where her worth was finally seen and appreciated. That life, she knew deep inside, was waiting for her, and she was ready. After many years of growing up on the reservation, Maria's life continued to follow a familiar rhythm of work, study, and quiet reflection. Each day she woke before sunrise, tending to the animals, helping her parents with chores, and learning more about the land she called home. But despite the routine, something new began to stir in her world, a sense that change was coming, and that life could offer opportunities she had only imagined in her dreams. One summer, the nearby town held a small fair where people from the reservation and neighboring communities gathered to sell goods, trade animals, and showcase skills. Maria's family had a small stall with handmade crafts and farm produce. She spent hours arranging baskets of fresh eggs, jars of preserves, and woven blankets. She carefully polished each item, wanting it to look its best. Though her hands were rough from work, she moved with care, taking pride in everything she touched. It was at this fair that Thomas first noticed Maria. Thomas was a young rancher from a neighboring valley, known in his community for his honesty and quiet strength. Unlike many visitors who only glanced at the stalls, Thomas took the time to look closely at the items, asking questions about how they were made and who had made them. When he approached Maria's stall, he was immediately struck not just by her beauty, but by the way she spoke, confidently, politely, and with a depth of knowledge that was rare for someone so young. "Did you make all of this?" Thomas asked, his voice full of genuine curiosity. Maria nodded. "Yes, my mother and I work together, but I help with most of it," she replied. She was careful, as always, to be polite, but not to seem boastful. Many people had teased her for speaking confidently, so she had learned to choose her words carefully. Thomas smiled. "It's impressive. You have a lot of skill for someone your age." Those words surprised Maria. Most people her age, and even some adults in her community, focused only on her appearance or teased her for trying to do more than was expected. Hearing someone recognize her hard work felt like a light turning on in a dark room. She smiled, feeling a warmth she had rarely experienced before. Over the following weeks, Thomas returned to the reservation often, sometimes to trade goods, other times just to check on how the community was doing. He would stop by Maria's family home helping with chores or talking to her father about ranching. Slowly, a friendship began to grow between Maria and Thomas, built on respect and genuine interest. He asked about her life, her dreams, and the work she loved doing every day. And Maria, in turn, found herself opening up more than she ever had to anyone outside her family. The more Maria and Thomas talked, the more she began to see that there were people in the world who would value her not for what she looked like or how others judged her, but for her skills, her intelligence, and her kindness. For the first time, she felt seen, truly seen, by someone outside her immediate family. However, life on the reservation did not pause for this new friendship. The teasing continued, though Maria had learned to ignore it. Some of her peers whispered when they saw her speaking to Thomas, wondering why he paid attention to her instead of others. Some adults, though kinder, still shook their heads at the idea of a young rancher forming a close friendship with a girl from their small community. But Maria had grown strong. She knew that her worth was not determined by gossip or opinions, and she held her head high, walking proudly even when others looked at her with surprise or doubt. As summer turned into fall, Thomas began to show Maria the wider world beyond the reservation. He would take her on short trips to his ranch, showing her how to care for larger herds, repair fences, and manage pastures. Maria learned quickly, her hands skilled and steady as she worked alongside him. She loved the freedom of riding across the open fields, feeling the wind in her hair and the sun on her face. The wide open spaces felt like an extension of the desert she had always loved, but now with a sense of purpose and excitement. During these visits, Thomas would also talk about life, about the importance of patience, hard work, and honesty. He encouraged Maria to continue learning, to pursue her dreams, and to never let anyone's words make her doubt her abilities. Maria listened intently, soaking up every lesson. And slowly a bond of trust and admiration formed between them. She realized that Thomas didn't see her as just a pretty face or a hard worker. He valued her ideas, her determination, and her unique way of looking at the world. The friendship began to change how others in the community saw Maria. Whispers that once carried mockery turned into murmurs of curiosity. People noticed how Thomas treated her with respect and kindness. They began to see that Maria's confidence was not arrogance, but a quiet strength built over years of learning, working, and surviving the teasing of her peers. Slowly, admiration began to replace ridicule. Despite this growing recognition, Maria remained humble. She never boasted about her skills or the attention she was receiving. She continued helping her family, tending to animals, and exploring the desert that had always been her refuge. But now, she had a companion who saw her worth and encouraged her to see it too. And that made all the difference. One crisp autumn evening, Thomas invited Maria to help with a small harvest on his ranch. The golden light of the setting sun bathed the fields in warmth as they worked side by side. Maria felt a sense of belonging she had never known before. The work was hard, but it was fulfilling. And for the first time, she realized that her dreams of running a ranch, learning new skills, and being respected for who she truly was could actually become real. As they rested after a long day, Thomas turned to her. "You have a rare strength, Maria," he said. "Not many people can do what you do, and not many have your heart. I'm proud to know you." Maria felt a flush of warmth at his words. She had spent so long doubting herself, feeling the sting of mockery and whispers. But here was someone who recognized her effort and admired her spirit. That simple acknowledgement felt like the first step toward a new life, a life where she could be proud of herself without fear or hesitation. In the weeks that followed, their friendship deepened. Thomas continued to visit the reservation, always respectful, always patient, and always encouraging. Maria began to notice small changes in herself as well. She walked taller, smiled more freely, and spoke with a confidence that felt natural rather than forced. The teasing from her peers had less power over her. She was learning that the opinions of those who could not see her value were less important than the recognition of those who truly understood her heart. By the end of the season, Maria had grown not only in skill, but in self-assurance. Her family noticed it too, the quiet way she carried herself, the pride in her work, and the happiness in her eyes. Even the elders in the community began to show her respect, recognizing the strength she had developed through years of dedication and perseverance. Maria's life, once confined to the narrow streets and small expectations of the reservation, was beginning to expand. Opportunities, friendships, and admiration were slowly entering her world, all because she had never given up on herself, even when others mocked or doubted her. Maria's story in this phase of her life was a story of growth, friendship, and recognition. It was the story of a young woman learning to stand tall, to trust in her abilities, and to understand that true value comes from within. The bond she had formed with Thomas was more than friendship. It was a mirror reflecting the respect and admiration she had longed for, a reminder that patience, kindness, and perseverance are always noticed, even if not immediately. And as the sun set over the reservation each evening, Maria would often pause and look out at the horizon, feeling a sense of hope she had never experienced before. The mocking voices of her past were fading, replaced by the quiet certainty that her life could be more than she had ever imagined, that someone could see her worth, that she could be proud of herself, and that a brighter, fuller future was waiting just beyond the edge of the desert she had always loved. As the months passed, Maria's life began to change in ways she had never imagined. The friendship she had formed with Thomas was growing stronger, and with it, her confidence and sense of self-worth. Every time he visited, he encouraged her, celebrated her skills, and listened to her dreams. Maria realized that she could finally share her hopes without fear of ridicule, and each conversation with Thomas left her feeling stronger and more capable. But life on the reservation was never simple. Though some of the teasing had faded, whispers and sideways glances still followed her. A few people seemed uncomfortable with the attention she was receiving from Thomas, and others seemed unsure how to treat her now that she had begun to stand out. Maria noticed the way some girls would lower their voices when she passed, and the way a few boys would avoid eye contact. At first, these reactions made her nervous, but over time, she began to see them for what they were: a reflection of others' insecurities, not a judgment of her own worth. Maria's parents watched the changes in her with quiet pride. Her father noticed the way she carried herself with poise and determination, and her mother smiled at the new spark in her daughter's eyes. "You've grown," her father said one evening as they sat around the small kitchen table, "not just in skill, but in spirit. Keep being yourself, Maria. The right people will notice, and the wrong ones will fade away." One crisp autumn morning, Thomas invited Maria to help with a special project on his ranch. He wanted to expand the grazing fields and repair old fences that had been neglected for years. Maria eagerly accepted, seeing it as an opportunity to learn more and to contribute meaningfully. When she arrived, the ranch stretched out before her, wide and golden under the rising sun. The scale of the work was greater than anything she had done on her family's small ranch, but she felt ready. Over the next few days, Maria worked tirelessly alongside Thomas and his team. She learned how to measure posts, hammer stakes, and reinforce fences. Her hands became rougher, her muscles stronger, and her confidence grew with every task she completed. Thomas always made sure to praise her efforts. "You have an incredible work ethic, Maria," he said one afternoon as they took a break under the shade of a large oak tree. "Most people would get tired or frustrated, but you keep going. That's rare." Maria felt a warm glow of pride. For so long, she had wondered if her efforts would ever be recognized. Now, someone was seeing not just her appearance, but the hard work, intelligence, and determination that had always been part of her. She realized that recognition was more powerful than any praise she had received before, because it came from someone who truly understood her. As they worked together, their friendship deepened into a quiet closeness. Thomas would share stories of life on his ranch, teaching Maria about crops, irrigation, and how to care for larger herds. He also encouraged her to think beyond the immediate tasks, to consider the bigger picture of running a successful ranch and managing a team. Maria listened carefully, absorbing everything, and she began to dream bigger than she ever had before. One evening, as the sky turned pink and orange with the setting sun, Maria and Thomas sat together on the edge of the ranch, watching the animals graze peacefully in the distance. Thomas turned to her and said softly, "You've grown so much, Maria. I've never met anyone like you. Someone so strong, so capable, and so kind. I admire you more than I can say." Maria's heart beat faster. These words, simple as they were, carried a weight she had never experienced before. She realized that Thomas didn't just respect her work. He valued her as a person. For the first time, she felt truly understood and appreciated by someone outside her family. The days that followed brought small but meaningful changes in Maria's life. Back on the reservation, people began to notice the bond she shared with Thomas. Some who had once mocked her now looked at her with curiosity, and a few even began to show respect. Maria didn't seek approval, but she couldn't help feeling a quiet satisfaction that her perseverance was being acknowledged. Despite these positive changes, Maria remained humble. She continued to help her family, care for animals, and maintain the routines that had shaped her life. She knew that her growth was not just about being recognized by others, but about discovering her own strength and confidence. The teasing of the past had taught her resilience, patience, and the importance of staying true to herself. One day, Thomas suggested that Maria attend a regional ranching workshop in the nearby town. The workshop would bring together ranchers from across the state, offering lessons on modern techniques, animal care, and sustainable farming practices. Maria hesitated at first, unsure if she would fit in among so many experienced ranchers. But Thomas encouraged her gently. "You belong there," he said. "You've worked hard, and you have as much to contribute as anyone else." At the workshop, Maria quickly proved herself. She asked thoughtful questions, shared her experiences, and offered practical solutions to problems others hadn't considered. People were impressed by her knowledge and confidence, and she received genuine compliments for her insights. Maria realized that she could stand on her own, that her skills and intelligence were enough to earn respect without needing anyone else's validation. Returning home from the workshop, Maria felt a new sense of pride. She had stepped outside her familiar world and discovered that her abilities and ideas mattered. Thomas noticed the change in her as well. "I knew you could do it," he said, smiling. "You're stronger than you realize, and people are beginning to see it too." As autumn turned to winter, Maria continued to grow in both skill and confidence. She and Thomas spent long hours working on the ranch, learning from each other and building a partnership based on trust and mutual respect. Maria felt a deep sense of belonging, not just to the land but to someone who truly valued her. Her family and community began to change their perception of her as well. The whispers of ridicule had mostly faded, replaced by admiration and quiet respect. Some of the younger children looked up to her, inspired by her determination and knowledge. The elders spoke kindly to her, acknowledging the hard work she had done and the wisdom she had gained. Maria realized that her perseverance, patience, and dedication had transformed the way people saw her. Through it all, Maria remained grounded. She never forgot the lessons she had learned in her early years, the importance of kindness, patience, and staying true to oneself. She knew that respect and recognition were earned through consistent effort, honesty, and integrity. And she also understood that true happiness came not just from being admired, but from knowing her own worth and living in alignment with her values. By the end of this season, Maria had grown in ways that went far beyond physical skill. She had developed emotional strength, self-confidence, and a deep understanding of what it meant to be valued for who she truly was. Her friendship with Thomas had become a source of encouragement, inspiration, and stability. She knew that with him by her side, she could face challenges with courage and pursue her dreams without fear. Maria's story in this part of her life was one of transformation. She had moved from being teased and overlooked to being recognized, respected, and valued. She had learned that confidence grows from within, and that genuine recognition comes from those who truly understand and appreciate one's abilities and character. And as she looked out over the fields of Thomas's ranch, feeling the crisp winter air and the warmth of the setting sun, she understood that her life was entering a new chapter, one filled with opportunity, respect, and the possibility of a love built on mutual admiration and shared dreams. In these months, Maria had not only grown stronger and more capable, but she had also learned an important truth: that perseverance, patience, and integrity can transform not only one's own life, but also the way others perceive and respond to it. And as the days grew shorter and the nights colder, she faced the future with hope, determination, and the quiet certainty that her best years were still ahead. Winter slowly gave way to spring, and with it came new energy and hope for Maria. The desert was waking from its quiet rest, and the small trees and plants were beginning to bloom, mirroring the changes in her own life. She had grown stronger, more confident, and more certain of her abilities. Her friendship with Thomas had deepened into something more meaningful, though neither of them had yet spoken the words that both felt in their hearts. Spring was also the season for the community's annual fair, a time when people from the reservation and surrounding towns came together to celebrate, share produce, crafts, and skills, and to honor their traditions. For Maria, the fair had always been a mix of excitement and anxiety. In past years, it had been the place where she felt most judged, where whispers and laughter had followed her every step. But this year was different. She had grown in confidence, and she knew that people were beginning to see her in a new light. Maria spent days preparing for the fair, helping her mother bake breads and pies, arranging crafts, and carefully selecting the best eggs and preserves to display. She wanted to do her family proud, but she also wanted to show herself what she was capable of. When she arrived at the fairgrounds with her stall set up, she noticed the bustle of activity around her. Children laughing, elders sharing stories, and farmers from neighboring areas tending to their animals and displays. It was there, in the midst of the crowd, that Thomas appeared. He had brought along a few of his ranch hands, and he had a wide smile as he approached her. "You look ready for anything," he said warmly. "I think everyone here is about to see just how incredible you are." Maria felt a rush of nervous excitement. For the first time, she would not just be tending her stall quietly. She would be part of something bigger, a public stage where her skills, knowledge, and hard work could be recognized openly. She took a deep breath and began to arrange her items, feeling Thomas's calm presence beside her. As the day unfolded, people stopped by Maria's stall, admiring the quality of her work. They commented on the beauty of her baked goods, the careful craftsmanship of her crafts, and the freshness of her farm produce. Maria answered questions confidently, sharing tips on animal care and farming techniques. She explained how she and her family cared for each animal, how they maintained the land, and the effort it took to create such high-quality products. Soon whispers began to ripple through the fairgrounds. People who had once teased or doubted her were now watching closely, impressed by her knowledge and poise. Even some of the adults who had previously overlooked her nodded in appreciation. Maria noticed the looks of surprise on their faces and realized that the quiet confidence she had cultivated over the years was finally shining through. The moment that truly changed everything came in the afternoon. Thomas, who had been speaking with some visitors, turned to the crowd and addressed them with a clear and respectful voice. "Everyone, I want to take a moment to recognize someone very special," he said. "Maria has worked tirelessly on her family's ranch and here at the fair. She is not only skilled and knowledgeable, but she is also kind, hard-working, and truly remarkable. I am proud to know her and to see the talent and strength she brings to everything she does." The crowd fell silent for a moment, then began to murmur among themselves. Some people clapped, others nodded in agreement, and many approached Maria to offer words of praise and encouragement. Maria felt her cheeks flush, not from embarrassment, but from the overwhelming sense of validation. She had worked hard, persevered through years of teasing and doubt, and now her abilities and character were being recognized publicly. For Maria, this was a turning point. The recognition she received that day was not just about her appearance or charm. It was about her skills, her intelligence, and her dedication. She realized that true respect and admiration were earned through effort and integrity, and that those who truly mattered would always notice. The teasing from the past felt distant now, replaced by a sense of pride and accomplishment. Thomas stayed by her side throughout the day, offering quiet support and encouragement. At one point, as the sun began to set and the fair wound down, he placed a hand on her shoulder and said softly, "I told you everyone would see what I've always known. You are extraordinary, Maria. Never forget that." Maria smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She had dreamed of being recognized, but the reality was even more powerful than she had imagined. In that moment, she understood that the journey she had taken, from quiet resilience to public recognition, had shaped her into the strong, capable woman she had become. The fair ended with a small ceremony honoring the most outstanding contributions, and Maria was invited to speak about her experiences. She stood in front of the crowd, her heart racing, and spoke with clarity and confidence. She shared her journey, the lessons she had learned from her family, the desert, and her own perseverance. She thanked the people who had supported her and encouraged others to pursue their dreams no matter the obstacles. Her speech was met with applause, and for the first time, Maria felt fully embraced by her community. The mockery of the past had been replaced with admiration, respect, and even inspiration. People approached her afterward to congratulate her, ask for advice, and express their appreciation for her courage and wisdom. Maria realized that her journey had not only transformed her life, but had also begun to influence the lives of others around her. After the fair, Maria and Thomas walked together back to the ranch. The sky was painted with the soft hues of evening, and the cool air carried the promise of spring. They spoke quietly about the day, sharing laughter and reflections. Maria felt a deep sense of contentment. She had faced the scrutiny and judgment of her peers, persevered through years of quiet struggle, and emerged stronger and more respected. And now, with Thomas by her side, she felt ready to embrace whatever the future might bring. That evening, as Maria sat by the fire in her family's home, she thought about how far she had come. She remembered the years of teasing, the moments of self-doubt, and the quiet solitude of the desert paths where she had dreamed of a better life. She realized that every challenge, every moment of mockery, and every lesson from her family had prepared her for this moment of recognition and pride. Her parents watched her with quiet satisfaction. Her mother spoke softly. "Maria, you have shown everyone the strength of your heart and the power of your spirit. We are proud of you." Her father nodded, adding, "You've earned this respect, not just from others, but from yourself. Never forget that." Maria felt a sense of peace settle over her. She had learned that true recognition comes not from seeking approval, but from living with integrity, working hard, and staying true to oneself. The admiration she now received from others was a reflection of the strength she had cultivated within. In the weeks that followed, life continued on the ranch with a renewed sense of purpose. Maria worked alongside Thomas, learning new skills, sharing ideas, and growing in confidence each day. Their partnership was built on mutual respect, understanding, and support, and Maria realized that she had found not only a companion, but also a mentor and friend who truly saw her worth. The community, too, had shifted. People who had once mocked or doubted Maria now sought her guidance, admired her work, and looked to her as an example of perseverance and skill. The whispers of the past had faded completely, replaced by acknowledgement, encouragement, and respect. Maria understood that the journey had been long and sometimes difficult, but the reward, self-respect, community recognition, and genuine companionship was worth every moment of effort. And as Maria stood once again on the edge of the desert, watching the sun rise over the horizon, she felt a deep sense of accomplishment and hope. She knew that her journey was far from over, but she had reached a turning point, a moment where her worth was recognized, her skills celebrated, and her heart opened to the possibilities of love, respect, and fulfillment. For Maria, this was the climax of her journey so far. The struggles of her past had led to a moment of triumph, a day when she was seen for who she truly was, and when her resilience, intelligence, and kindness were celebrated. And with Thomas by her side, she knew that the future held even greater adventures, challenges, and joys. A life full of promise, respect, and the knowledge that she was capable of achieving anything she set her heart and mind to. Spring had fully arrived, and with it, the land was alive with color and energy. The desert was dotted with blooming flowers, the trees had fresh green leaves, and the animals grazed peacefully under the warm sun. For Maria, this season felt symbolic of her own life, a time of growth, new beginnings, and the flourishing of dreams she had once only imagined. Since the community fair, Maria's life had changed in many meaningful ways. People now recognized her for her skills, her hard work, and her kindness. The whispers of mockery that had once followed her through the streets of the reservation had disappeared, replaced by admiration and respect. Children looked up to her as a role model, elders nodded with appreciation, and even those who had once doubted her now sought her advice. Maria had learned that true recognition comes not from demanding attention, but from quietly working with honesty, patience, and integrity. Her partnership with Thomas had grown stronger as well. They spent their days working together on his ranch, learning from each other and sharing responsibilities. Maria had become skilled in managing larger herds, repairing fences, and maintaining the land. Thomas continued to encourage her, but he also allowed her space to lead, make decisions, and develop her own methods. Their relationship had evolved into one of mutual respect, trust, and quiet love. Maria felt a sense of companionship she had never known before. Someone who truly saw her, valued her, and believed in her abilities. One morning, Thomas suggested they take a long ride across the ranch to check on the farthest fields. The sun was warm, and the wind carried the scent of fresh grass and wildflowers. Maria rode confidently alongside him, feeling the freedom of the open land and the joy of sharing the space with someone who cared deeply for her. "You've come a long way, Maria," Thomas said softly, glancing at her. "I've watched you grow, and I've never been more proud. You've earned everything you have through your own strength and determination." Maria felt a lump in her throat. These words, simple yet heartfelt, reminded her of the long journey she had traveled, from a young girl who had been mocked by her peers to a woman who was now respected and admired. She thought of her parents, the desert paths where she had wandered alone, and the quiet moments of perseverance that had brought her here. "It hasn't always been easy," Maria replied honestly, "but I've learned that challenges help you grow. I've learned to trust myself and to keep moving forward, even when others doubt you. And having someone who believes in me, it makes all the difference." Thomas smiled and squeezed her hand. "Then let's keep moving forward together," he said. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it side by side." In the weeks that followed, Maria's influence in the community continued to grow. She began mentoring younger girls and boys, teaching them about ranching, animal care, and the importance of persistence and integrity. She shared her experiences from the fair and the workshop, encouraging others to believe in themselves and pursue their dreams. Maria realized that her journey had not only transformed her life but could also inspire those around her to work hard, stay true to themselves, and embrace their own potential. Her parents watched this transformation with quiet pride. Her father often remarked to neighbors, "Maria has always had strength, but now she carries it with grace. She's an example to all of us." Her mother smiled, saying, "She has learned the most important lesson of all, that self-respect and kindness will always lead you to where you belong." As summer approached, Thomas and Maria began planning improvements to the ranch together. They discussed planting new crops, expanding the grazing fields, and introducing modern techniques to care for the animals. Maria's ideas were thoughtful and practical, showing a deep understanding of both the land and the animals. Thomas encouraged her, trusting her judgment and recognizing that her experience and knowledge were invaluable. Maria felt a sense of pride, knowing that her contributions were respected and valued. One evening, after a long day of work, Thomas and Maria sat on the porch of the ranch house, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky was painted with brilliant oranges, pinks, and purples, and the desert was alive with the sounds of evening birds and rustling leaves. Maria felt a sense of peace she had never known before. "Maria," Thomas began, turning to her, "I want you to know how much you mean to me. You've faced so much in your life, teasing, doubt, and obstacles, and yet you've grown into someone truly remarkable. I'm proud of you, and I hope you know that I see your worth every single day." Maria's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of gratitude and happiness. "Thank you, Thomas," she replied softly. "You've helped me believe in myself, and I've learned that the value of a person comes from their heart, their effort, and the choices they make, not from what others say about them." Their hands found each other, fingers entwined, and in that quiet moment, Maria felt a deep sense of connection and love. She realized that life's greatest rewards often come not from avoiding struggle, but from persevering through it with courage, integrity, and faith in oneself. The coming months brought new opportunities for Maria and Thomas. They began hosting small workshops on the ranch, teaching others about sustainable ranching, animal care, and responsible land management. People from nearby communities attended, eager to learn from Maria's knowledge and experience. She became known not just as a skilled rancher, but also as a mentor, a teacher, and a role model for perseverance and self-respect. Despite the growing recognition and responsibilities, Maria remained humble. She never sought attention or praise, but she understood the importance of using her influence to help others. She encouraged young people to pursue their dreams, emphasizing the value of hard work, patience, and integrity. And through it all, she never forgot the lessons of her youth, the quiet moments of reflection in the desert, the support of her family, and the perseverance that had allowed her to rise above teasing and doubt. Maria's life had been transformed, not overnight, but through years of steady effort, resilience, and belief in herself. She had gone from being mocked and overlooked to being respected, admired, and loved. And through it all, she had remained true to herself, proving that confidence, kindness, and dedication are the most powerful tools for shaping a life of meaning and fulfillment. By the end of the year, Maria and Thomas had not only strengthened their partnership, but had also built a small community of learners and supporters around them. The ranch was thriving, the animals were healthy, and the land was cared for with knowledge and respect. Maria felt a sense of purpose and belonging she had never known in her earlier years. On a quiet evening, as the stars began to twinkle above the desert, Maria stood outside, looking at the vast landscape that stretched beyond the horizon. She thought about the long journey she had traveled, the teasing, the doubt, the quiet moments of learning, and the friendships that had helped her grow. She realized that every challenge had shaped her into the person she had become, and every small victory had led her to this place of pride, respect, and fulfillment. She felt a soft hand on her shoulder and turned to see Thomas smiling at her. "You've done more than anyone could have imagined," he said. "You've inspired people, built a life filled with meaning, and shown that strength and kindness always triumph." Maria smiled, her heart full. "I've learned that life is about more than recognition," she said. "It's about believing in yourself, helping others, and staying true to your values. And with people who support and believe in you, anything is possible." As they stood together under the vast night sky, Maria felt a deep sense of peace and gratitude. She had faced mockery, doubt, and uncertainty, but she had persevered. She had discovered her worth, earned respect, and found companionship and love. The journey had been long, but the rewards were priceless. And so Maria's story reached a place of resolution. She had transformed her life through courage, hard work, and integrity. She had turned challenges into opportunities, doubts into lessons, and whispers of ridicule into voices of admiration. Her partnership with Thomas reflected the respect, love, and mutual support that she had always hoped for. Maria had learned the most important lesson of all, that true strength lies in believing in oneself, in remaining kind and patient, and in never giving up, no matter how difficult the path may seem. She looked forward to the future with hope, confidence, and a heart full of gratitude, knowing that her life was a testament to perseverance, self-respect, and the power of being seen for who she truly was.